Black rhinos, sandcats, zebras and fennec foxes. Those are just some of the animals we'll be looking at today, when I show you around in what for long has been some loose ends here in the Drylands. But a big part of this African area is now somewhat complete. So let's take a look at the Savannahs and the African Nighthouse and maybe a few other things along the way. Some of what you'll see today have been covered here on the channel before, but most of it has been changed since, and parts of it I've never gotten around to show you. Let's start here at the entrance point to the Savannah area. First, you're met by a WWF themed African souvenir shop you might have seen me build last year. And after we got our first look into the Savannah Complex. This part is an enclosure for the female black rhino as well as springboks. And while it looks like they share the space with even more classic savanna creatures, this is actually a result of a hidden barrier. So on the back you can sense zebra, wildebeest, gemsbok and ostrich. On the opposite side of the path you can find an enclosure for meerkats. Going further into this area you'll find an enclosure for the male black rhino. This features a small shelter area in the back, which can also be used for shifting the animal around. A gate is placed below this bridge so the two rhino paddocks can become one. We then get to a point where you can get a better look at the animals in the mixed savanna habitat. And straight ahead you'll find the caracal enclosures I made not so long ago. Now let's take a look at it all from above, so you can get a better idea of the layout here. As you can see, the savannas consist of multiple enclosures. The female black rhino and springboks are up in the front, where there is an extra enclosure attached to, which is supposed to be an area where the springboks can enter without the rhino being able to follow. The keepers can drive from this enclosure into the large savanna over a cattle grid, which the animals won't be able to cross. The larger savanna also got a smaller area for separation, as well as a larger stable building with multiple sections for the animals. The stable isn't super detailed at the moment, I might need to work on it some more later on. We'll see. Going past the savannas we'll reach a more open guest area. I might consider adding a small shop here at some point. From here you can go and watch the caracals. You can enter the tunnel to see the Goliath beetle and continue to the Saharan area, or you can go by the Dik-Diks and continue to the African Nighthouse, which we'll do now. In here we'll first reach the enclosure for the aardvarks. And here you'll also find an implied exhibit for termites inspired by this display in Basel Zoo. Going further into the house we'll find an enclosure for fennec foxes. This is not something I've shown you guys before. If you've been on the channel since the early days, then you might remember the fennec foxes used to have an enclosure on the opposite side of the Saharan area, which later became a habitat for porcupines. So now the foxes moved in here instead, since they fit well into the Nighthouse feeling. The same thing can be said about sandcats, which here has a two-sided enclosure, so the male and female can be separated. This is also a habitat I haven't shown on the channel before. At the end of the Nighthouse I integrated an Egyptian fruit bat exhibit, which has been here ever since the Twilight pack came out. I just decided to remove the walkthrough part of it, so it is instead a display you can look into. It felt more fitting for this building. If you then use the exit on the right, you'll find yourself in the Sahara part of the African area. Overall, I wouldn't say this Nighthouse is among my best work. It could use some more detailing. I might look into it again later on, but I'm okay with leaving it as it is, since it doesn't impact the overall feel of the zoo, since it's all hidden away in here. And I quite like how the facade of it turned out. Let me know what you think. I've now covered all these partly unseen additions to the African area here in the Drylands, which means you should be pretty up to date with the park now. With this part of the zoo more complete, it feels much easier to continue with the last few steps towards finishing up this park. But there is still a little more to do over here in Africa. There is one animal I still for sure wants to add in over here, and then there are a couple of maybes. Then the rest is only about filling out some empty areas and maybe adding some more guest facilities. Whatever it takes to make it all feel complete. And it's more or less the same story for the rest of the park. Getting this video out has been quite a struggle. First my computer died on me, and after trying a lot of things I managed to bring it back to life, even though it still shuts down from time to time. And the same goes for the game. I think this map is starting to be a little too complex for a computer which is already tired. Therefore I need to focus on the most important aspects of this park. Maybe leave out a few ideas to instead make sure I can manage to include what I feel like are the most important details of this concept, so I can be able to call this park complete. I'd rather finish up the Drylands leaving a few plants behind than not being able to finish it up at all. I hope that makes sense. Let us end the video with a little cinematic tour of what I've shown you today. Make sure to like the video if you enjoyed it and subscribe to the channel to see if I can manage to finish up the zoo. And then I just hope my computer will behave so I can be back with another video soon. Thank you for stopping by.